it may or may not be easy for you. For me, it wasn't easy. It took me a while to actually learn basic theory that I could, okay, I know what a C major is, I know what a D minor is. So it took me a while, but I never gave up because I wanted to be able to write music. And not only that, I wanted to be able to understand when people told me, hey, this song's in D minor. So, okay, I know what to do, or I know more or less where to play. So that was the main point for me as far as, I need to understand what a D minor is, because if people tell me to play that, I need to know what that is. Or if I want to play it, if I want to play a D minor, well, I need to know where that is. Where can I play a D minor anywhere in the neck, So, and as far as them thinking, yeah, dude, a lot of kids, there's always room to grow, man. That's all I'm going to say about that. There's always room to grow. You may think you're the biggest fish in the pond, but then a shark's going to come and eat you, so.
And that's the thing, though. It's like the greatest have already come and gone. You could be the greatest one day, but if you start thinking you already are, then you're probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Because even the greats always said that they were always learning. I mean, you hear like Joe Satriani talk about it. You hear like Steve Vai talk about it. All those guys, they still claim like there's still things that they're working on. And these are guys who've already had an amazing career. You know? So it's important to not ever get too comfortable and thinking like, oh, I know everything now. It just, it's just not a healthy way of thinking about it, and it's no way to grow.
Nah, man, and you come across people like that sometimes when you're jamming, and it's like, dude, like, I don't want to jam with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess to each their own, but yeah, just again to second that point again, there's always room for improvement, and you should always look for a way to make yourself better.
Yeah,
as a player.
So Tainted Equilibrium, that's basically like your current, what you're working on now, right? Do you ever do you ever see it becoming like a full band and maybe something more later on?
Well, yes, I would like that, but because, by the way, I recorded all the guitars, I recorded the bass, and the drums I sampled from a program, so that wasn't me, but I still took a couple of things. But as far as anything musical that's not the drums, I wrote and recorded every part for that.
Wow.
But I play guitar mostly. I play a little bit of bass. Keyboards, I'm still trying to figure out my way around the keyboard, but I was able to kind of, again, based on my knowledge of theory, I know what makes a D minor chord, so I would play that on the keyboard, and okay, that's a D minor, and C major, whatever. So that helped a little with that, because if I hadn't learned that back then, I would have not been able to record the keyboard parts for this. And I had a friend of mine hit me up a while back that I jammed with in a band. I was in a band with him about 10 years ago that was all instrumental metal.
Okay.
And yeah, we played a few shows here locally, and then it just so happened that things, didn't work out, so I ended up leaving the band. But I was in the band for about a year, and that's how I met him. He's a great drummer. He's an awesome drummer. So he heard my stuff the other day. He's like, "Hey man, if you ever want to play that stuff live, I can drum for you. Let me know."
Heck yeah.
So I'm thinking about that because it'd be cool. I mean, not that there is a big. It's kind of like a niche market, like a niche little genre, where it's all instrumental guitar and music, no singing, none of that for those songs. But it'd be cool because for us, when I was in that band with him and a couple of other guys, we still built a little bit of a following. Like, people were still into that, even though there was no singing. It was all metal, like all guitars and bass and everything. So you can find an audience for what you're doing, especially now. I mean, the internet is the biggest tool ever to find people to promote your music to. It can be a little discouraging because sometimes it takes a long time for anyone to catch on to your music. But I mean, at the same time, it's easier now than ever.
It's a double-edged sword, really, right? Because it getting your music out there in the world is 1,000 times easier. But then on the other side of that is because all of the social media content, it's also 1,000 times easier to get lost in a sea of people trying to do it. It's so as helpful as it is, it's also as damning at the same time. That's the only problem. Like, social media, I have a love-hate thing with social media. I mean, I need social media. I have a podcast. I have 2 podcasts, really. But, so social media it's a big part of my life right now. But it's also, it's kind of the downfall of people as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's ruined people. And but for some,
Yeah,
but again, it's a good tool for like what you said, for getting your music out there.
yeah. And the thing about the internet though is that since, and again, I'm not trying to sound like, like I'm like I think I'm better than I am really.
Mm.
But the thing about the internet is that it lets anyone release music at any point.
Oh yeah.
Whether or not that music is good, I mean, it's up to the listener. But in all honesty, a lot of the music that's released out there is not that great.
No, it's not. There is a lot of
But
really bad
and
music.
yeah, and by that I mean in any genre, not necessarily just rock. I mean, it can
Mm.
be any genre. I mean, rap, hip hop, soul, whatever. That you hear some songs, like, oh my god, the vocal is so out of tune.
Country.
So my point being that I mean, we're all so anxious to get ourselves out there that we don't take the time to actually sit down and think, is this something that is worthy of release? Like, is this something is that I worked on hard enough that I feel okay, this can be out there in the world? And I don't think that happens to a lot of people. I think
No.
we're just also anxious. Hey man, I wrote this rap song or I wrote this rock song. Here, listen to it, and you hear the guitars are all out of sync and the drums out of tempo and this and that, and it's like, you know. So that's another thing, because I realized that about my music when I recorded some of my stuff. I didn't like the way it sounded. It was off tempo, or my guitars were out of tune. So I'm talking from experience, mind you. First of all, in the sense that I would hear my songs and I would notice these things about the songs, and it's like, I can't release this. Like, I mean, I can, but it's horrible, and I don't want my name put on this if it's gonna be out in this
Oh yeah.
form. So I would go back and re-record the songs and learn how to change the guitar tones and this and that. I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube for the past couple of years on song producing when it comes to actually making sure everything sits well in the mix. Because one of the things that I realized not very long ago actually is that you can't use the same guitar tone for everything.
Yeah.
You have, like, for home use, you can find the tone that's perfect for your bedroom or for your jam room. But then when somebody calls you, hey, let's jam in my garage, and you go to their house and you have the amp set up the same way and it sounds horrible. Or for one, the room is different. It's a completely different room.
Yeah.
And two, now you got a drummer and a bass player and a singer and to
It changes.
play with.
It changes your sound.
Exactly, man. So that's a whole different tone you got to figure out as far as jamming with the band. And then you got to figure out a whole different tone for recording.
Mm.
Because when it comes to recording, I again, very recently found, and I maybe like 5-6 months ago, I found out that, I mean, I don't want to sound too technical. So I have no idea what I'm talking about here as far as technical part of it, but I know that certain frequencies don't mesh well with each other. So when you have too much of the same frequency on different instruments, it sounds horrible. It sounds real like muddy and dirty, and you can't tell what the guitar playing is or what the drummer is playing, because these frequencies kind of start piling up on each other and it creates this little wall of dirt and sludge. So I kept hearing that on my music. Is like, why do my songs sound so dirty, so sludgy? The guitar sounds okay by itself, the bass sounds okay by itself, but then you put it all together and it was that wall of hum.
Yeah.
And I said, dude, what am I doing wrong? So I took it upon myself to, educate myself, and okay, so how can I fix this recording? And if not, let me figure out how to record it better to begin with, so I don't have this problem in the future. So sure enough, I found a lot of good resources on YouTube, man, as far as producing from home and equalizing your recordings. And this last album that I released, I was gonna release it, and then I tried a couple of things that I learned from those videos, and it's like, dude, like, it sounds so much clearer. The guitars sound a lot better. They come out a lot better in the mix. The drums sound heavier, but at the same time, they're not overtaking everything else like they used to be. And it's like, man, I'm telling you, like, the best thing you can do is always try to find a way to learn something new when it comes to, I mean, anything in general, really, but I mean, music for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they don't make all of these pedals and amps with EQs, and they don't make all this so we can all dial in the same exact sound. There's a reason for all of it. Play with it, like, find your sound, find the sound that works. Like you're saying, you almost need a different tone for everything that you're doing, because you have to lay it down and it has to sound right. But I want to ask you some other questions, because we're getting pretty close to an hour here.
Sure.
I only really have 2 preloaded questions that I care enough that I want to ask you, and one is, how does your mom feel about you, Jason? Like the dream of being a musician. I mean, she helped start you out. How does she feel about it?
My parents, both of them are pretty supportive. Again, like my dad, his music. Now that I hear it, I appreciate it. I like it. But think about it this way. I mean, I guess the best example I could give you for my dad is somebody that's into country music, like Hank Williams, stuff like that. That's really down to earth and really like rootsy kind of music, but in the Mexican side of stuff, right? So, because he grew up in a ranching community, and so did my mom. So they both grew up around that music, and so for me to play metal, that he's kind of like he's like, son, why can you play the accordion? Why can't you play the polka for me? I'm like, sorry, Dad. It's not gonna happen. But as far as I am chasing the music still. I'm 37. I'll be 38 this summer. Okay. So for a lot of people, that might be he's too old for that. But
nah,
I don't think that matters anymore. It used to be a factor back in the day because you had to have an image and you had to be like in your 20s because the industry is so different right now, man. Just real quick, you don't need a label anymore. In essence, the only way that you would need a label, or the only purpose for that, would be if you're gonna be touring the world, which a lot of us are. That's not gonna happen until maybe in the future when you actually have a fan base and you have a song catalog and you've played enough shows that somebody actually wants to sign you. But in the meantime, it's like you gotta have something else to do. You can't just wait for this. So. I had a career. I have a cool job right now that I'm working. So, music for me, I'm never gonna stop doing it. It's just, as long as I'm able to and I can think of stuff to write, I'll do that till I can't anymore.
Yeah.
But they're both pretty supportive still. Even though they don't really like my music too much.
They're not supposed to. They're your parents.
Yeah. So and it's not. Imagine if I was playing like Slayer or something like that, they'd probably call the priest. But oddly enough, I never got into stuff like that. But anyways, they're supportive. They appreciate the fact that I still think about having a job and a career and like as far as a professional career outside of music, because that's their fear always was for me to become a vagrant or a drug addict or something, or a drunk, a junkie somewhere. That's not really an issue for me. I drink quite a bit, but that's pretty much all that I do.
Yeah. Well, hey, at least now you can tell her, hey, I didn't put it in my closet.
Yeah.
It's right here.
I know.
All right, so I have one more question for you, and this is basically what I consider the defining question of my show. And it's, if you woke up tomorrow and you were the most sought-after guitar player in the whole world, and every brand approached you and wanted to make your signature guitar, what would your signature guitar be? Now, I want you to build it. I want you to build this thing. You can pick, you could pick, I just want a Les Paul. But, if what would make it your signature guitar, though?
Well, I like maple necks and fretboards, for one.
Okay.
I can play anything as far as rosewood or anything like that. I always liked the look and the feel of maple on a fretboard and on a neck. So that would be a must for me. It would need to have for me to be a signature Chewey guitar, that would be the main feature, a maple neck and fretboard. I would want it to be kind of like, not so much a Strat shape, but that kind of like double cutaway type of shape, kind of like a, with a horn slightly longer than the other. I would need for it to be 2 humbucking pickups, because I can always make it so it's a coil split.
Coil split, yeah.
Yeah. So I just like the sound of humbuckers, man. I can appreciate the sound of a Strat and stuff like that, but for what I play, that's not really the type of sound that I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely like to have 2 humbuckers with coil tap function, high output preferably, so I can crank it up when I need to.
Okay.
And 6-string ideally. If it's a 7-string, I can live with that. I have a couple of 7-strings, but I prefer the 6. Just for the, and as far as the color, I would pick blue.
Okay.
Blue's my favorite color, so I would be a blue guitar with a maple neck and fretboard with 2 humbuckers, coil split. What else can I think of?
Floyd Rose.
Locking tuners.
Would you
locking tuners?
Okay.
Floyd Rose, oddly enough, I'm not a big fan of.
Really? Okay.
I mean,